Apollo 11 landed in the moon with very old technology. For me, it was a suicide mission, and it was completely driven by propaganda and politics.
Interesting to look at it as well from a fuel usage perspective, because we know now that 90% of the fuel is burned just to get the rocket into orbit. And like with some of these big ships, it takes 10 refuels like this just to refill the ship again before like the next mission. So
Apollo 11 was flying with fuel cells that was being disposed. Artemis II was flying with indefinite power source with the solar panels. It's indefinite. It could fly forever. There's no limit to what we can do. Like, honestly, we are.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the newest episode of the TrickCast. We got Mr. Amir Abdelazim in the house, as usual, myself, Alex. We're sharing what is the newest, hottest, most fascinating in the world of technology and business. Who are the magicians? Who are the scholars? Who are the people manipulating and moving things ahead behind the scenes? And this episode, we're trying to keep it a little bit more optimistic. So instead of focusing so much on the Iran conflict, the oil shortages, we decided to focus on people orbiting around the moon once again for the first time in, what was it, more than 50 years? 47 years? 50 years. Amir, how are you feeling this week with what's happening in the world?
To be honest, I was haunted by following Artemis II. It's just like I think it's a news that tops up any other news in the world,
And
and with every second of watching what is happening there, there's like almost like a matrix flowing in my eyes of which technology is there, which is behind this, who made this, what this work, how did it work. Yesterday night, it's look at the video, it's amazing. They entered the space with 24,000 miles per second and then landed on 27 kilometers per hour, and they all save a beautiful moment for humanity. And it's just great. It's great. Well, how do you feel about it?
so I thought they did a really bad job marketing this whole thing compared to the last time they went to the moon, right? The last time there's almost, let's put our, I'll put my conspiracy hat on, but there's a lot of theories that, not necessarily that people didn't go to the moon. I think that's pretty common fact, but the fact that maybe some of the footage that we saw behind the whole fiasco wasn't actually shot on the moon by, the astronauts, because back then with technology that we had, it was very difficult to execute. So some theories are that what we've seen was partially shot, maybe somewhere in the desert in California the first time. This time, I think you cannot argue that with the kind of technology we have, that it really happened as they said it had happened. And as we're recording this couple hours ago, they just landed safely in the middle of the ocean, got picked up, and um, yeah. So, why don't you give us a bit of an overview, Amir, what we're going to focus on in this conversation? Because we're going to go through the whole moon journey and connect some interesting people and technologies in it.
The point is actually talking about the propaganda as well about, for Apollo and the marketing for Apollo. You were spot on, but I'm gonna tell you why later. Actually, let's put this. I just can't get over the fact that they were entering the Earth with 24,000 miles per second, and they landed with a 0.4% accuracy in the spot where they needed to land. It's I don't know, but this is just wow. And I keep thinking about it, and I say there's no limit to what we can do. Like, honestly, we are we are limitless. We do many things. There is a lot of stories around this trip, like 10 days, that I think deserve to have their own movie and work their own way. However, I think you're right about the propaganda part. I'm not sure about whether they landed or not. That I doubt it. I think like the U.S. is very governed and controlled in its own way, so they definitely landed. And Neil Armstrong and the team that have done history there, I think they did history. I think what you're projecting now is the difference between the two routes of Apollo 11 and then Artemis 2.
Yeah,
And
let's maybe explain this to the audience slowly. So if somebody's just listening, um, basically, whenever the Apollo missions flew out, it's almost like a straight line up vertically towards the Earth. There's some curvature, obviously, from the Earth itself, and they're trying to catch the orbit of the moon as it's passing by, obviously a couple thousand kilometers away, a couple tens of kilometers away. Whereas for Artemis, what's interesting is that they shot it out just outside of the Earth, and then they're letting it fall down and actually use the gravity of the Earth to spin it back around, right? And almost like a slingshot swinging around your head that you're releasing finally, right? Like David and Goliath. And then it just, goes forward. And instead of vertically landing on the moon, they're almost kind of softening the fly around it as the moon is passing by, right? So it's interesting to look at it as well from a fuel usage perspective, because we know now that 90% of the fuel is burned just to get the rocket into orbit. And like with some of these big ships, it takes 10 refuels like this just to refill the ship again before like the next mission. So pretty incredible.
But it's what I really love about this video. It's marking Apollo 11, Apollo 13, and Artemis 2. I don't know if people are interested in Greek mythology. Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo. So there's a great moment for humanity in this photo. Actually, two great moments of humanity and one sad moment for humanity, actually. And they really were definited in the space. So we're like Apollo 11 landed in the moon with very old technology. For me, it was a suicide mission, and it was completely driven by propaganda and politics. So it has the moment there was we need to beat the Soviet. That's it. So that's what was in the head of Nixon and the team, or Roosevelt, I think, the president at this point of time. It's more we have to beat it to the moon, because I think the Soviets had sent two dogs or on the space earlier. So
And to give some context, that everybody knows communism and capitalism, the whole battle there. But I guess the whole point was there's so much fight and propaganda to show which way of living is superior, which ideology is superior, the communist or capitalist, right? So if you can show that you're out inventing and out exceeding your competitor in all these different areas, right? Like you're sending live beings out of the space orbit for the first time. Obviously, it's a powerful image that everybody sees it. Hey, either we're on the communist side and we chose the right side, or communism is better, therefore we should try it. So whoever gets to those big achievements first gets a huge boost, let's say, on the global scale, right?
And the point is, with Apollo 11, it was almost the whole world sitting in front of TVs and watching. And I guess it's the highest viewing ever of any live event at some point of time. And this was the peak of the media industry, right? So it was a Soviet, it was a propaganda conversation, it was let's beat it, and then Apollo 11, and then Neil Armstrong, again, with his amazing skills and courage and bravery at this point of time to really like, and when we compare the technologies of 52 years ago and today, it's just wow. So they landed there on the moon, and then they came back on a moment that was historical. And then there was a catastrophic decision made with Apollo 13. I don't even think that people know that we landed in the moon more after that. Like there was two times. But Neil Armstrong is or Apollo 11 is the remarkable moment for the humanity. And Apollo 13 was another remarkable moment when Apollo 13 exploded with a very poor decision making mechanism. Like almost it's been teaching now in all business schools of how not to make a wrong decision under the pressures of politics and mixing political pressure into engineering power. So that the engineering team refused that Apollo 13 goes, and the political and the media pressure forced them to go, and the catastrophe has been what we have seen of the Apollo 13 explosion. And then Nixon actually canceled the Apollo program completely under the pressure of this, because he was worried before the election that another set of astronauts get exploded in TV and it will just blow up his
Political
election.
career, yeah.
But also the media industry, which was the driving industry at this time, they said the viewings went down, no one cares, and they're true. I think the moment
It
of
went
Neil
from
Armstrong,
650 million people watching the Apollo 11 landing to, I think, people barely caring after some years.
yeah, and the point is, then there was no business case, so the program stopped completely. And so it's very expensive program. It's sending the people for an ego. Soviet Union is already gone, so we don't need to prove something to them. And the media is not, people are not watching. It's very expensive, so let's kill the program. And that's what happened. Apollo was killed by Nixon. Like, I think Apollo 17, 18 went by force, and then Apollo 20 was even canceled before Apollo 13 took off. And then it died. And then another amazing thing happened in humanity. There is a guy. Then Elon Musk happened. And when Elon Musk happened with his mission and drive, and he wants to do that, he took his payout from the PayPal acquisition and started SpaceX.
And there's a famous story from his book, from the book Elon by Ashley Vance, where I think he got 200 million profit from selling his PayPal equity. He put 100 into Tesla, he put 80 into SpaceX, and he put 20 into Solar City, if I'm not mistaken. And the rumor has it that he had no money to basically, sleeping on friends' couches. And with the SpaceX launches, they had literally, I think, down to the last failed launch, that if it failed one more time, they didn't have enough money to basically keep the company running, and they ended up succeeding in that test, and that's what kicked it all off, right? But it's interesting that all three still operate today. All
He
three
bankrupted
companies.
actually in 2007. It was a complete bankruptcy, and there was an amazing woman. Actually, we can talk about it later. The current CEO of SpaceX, that managed to recover the whole supply chain and re-facilitate the contracts actually, and get SpaceX back from there. And so far, I think there was a big say about Elon in the dynamics of SpaceX, that he is the dreamy, explosive, let's make everything happen type of guy, and he needed some stopgap next to him, and that was the CEO of SpaceX there. But
Maybe
yeah,
one of the most powerful women in tech, arguably, in the world,
exactly,
or
and I
most
think
influential.
she's a very strong operator actually, and I really like. There's a big difference between visionaries and operators, and if you get both of them in one, then this is like the epitome. This is God. But like Elon is visionary, but he needed an operator next to him that
Systemizes, professionalizes.
systematically put the gap and professionalize setup and make things work. However, Falcon 9 was the remarkable moment, and that Falcon 9 has put all the space program back to start making sense again. Let's try to make it work. So Obama brought it back and put the program back. And apparently, actually, no, sorry. My bad. Bush brought it back, but the 2004 when he was busy bombing Iraq. But he didn't allocate the budgets to it, and it was the Constellations program, and was a complete failure. No point of actually making it work. And Obama came and closed the program till Trump came in 2017 in his first, and had his nice meetup with Elon Musk, and he signed executive order of bringing men back to the moon and men back to Mars again. This morning, one of the sweet tweets of Trump was about going to Mars next. And honestly, this is the moments where you really appreciate the US. To be honest, it's just they get it done. They make it
Who
happen.
else is going to do it, right? You got some crazy, crazy people there who sometimes in the wrong direction, but yeah, nobody else is going out there and saying that we're going to use space as we're going to use the sun as the biggest battery, and we're going to build new bases on the moon, and we're going to use it to propel human civilization to become a multi-planetary species, colonize Mars, and then our solar system, eventually. So quite ambitious, I'd say.
Actually, think about it. Apollo 11 was flying with fuel cells that was being disposed. Artemis 2 was flying with indefinite power source with the solar panels. It's indefinite. It could fly forever. It's just wow. So the amount of tech and engineering has been placed between Apollo 11 and Artemis. Big thanks to it goes to really two institutions, if we can call it this way: the Lincoln Lab of MIT and SpaceX. And it's two different ways of doing things completely to what we used to be talking about today, or always in TrickCast. We've been always talking about the tech or the developments or the chipsets and AI, and also like there's no way the navigation would have happened without AI, the way we have seen it with that accuracy there. So where do we start? It's just like so mind-blowing for me. So let's start by actually navigation. So actually no, let's start by the takeoff, Falcon 9. And there is an amazing guy there. Falcon 9, actually, there's a gentleman called Tom Mueller. So when Elon Musk decided to build SpaceX, he wanted to start building the team. And Tom Mueller is employee number one for Elon Musk. So he used to work in the space industry before, and then he gave up on working on corporates, and he felt like all his ideas are being destroyed, and he cannot really fulfill it. So he resigned and decided to go and work in his garage, and he started building what became the basis of the launch of Falcon 9 in his garage. And then he later went to build it in a warehouse of a friend. And then someone told Elon Musk about this guy. And then Elon Musk went to meet him in his garage. And then he said, okay, this is wow. Do you think you can build something bigger? And Tom said, yeah, hell yeah, let's build something. And 2002 till 2020, with the amazing brain of Tom Mueller and his team, they made it that we can take the cost of going to space by 1/10. So we are 1/10 of the cost of how it was costing to go with Apollo 11 at some point of time. And all the massive engineering on the launch there, that's what made actually us going to space significant by a guy like Tom Mueller. It's wow.
And to give some context there as well, think of all the money that was spent on the space tech since the you know the Cold War days, let's put it that way. And they said a lot of that technology was lost because we haven't really been using it. We haven't been improving on it for many years, right? So a lot of it was kind of a single use type of technology, especially the engine. And the big breakthrough with SpaceX, at least, is that the engines are reusable. So I think some of them have landed dozens and dozens of times, which would cost tens of millions of dollars for every single launch. So the factor by which you're reducing that cost, it's absolutely insane, right? It's like imagine that instead of filling up your car for 150 euros, now it costs you 15 euros to do the same thing. I mean, that's a big difference. You're going to drive your car much more, right? You're going to explore the area much more.
It's amazing. And think about it actually. And I really like, I stop and pause on the story of Tom Mueller specifically because it's, to be honest, Elon is so inspiring when it comes to the his stickiness to his business. But Tom, he stayed like 15 years at TRW, like managing teams and managing corporates and all of that. And then he said, enough is enough, and went to his garage. And in my view, and I think we said that again and again and again about many leaders actually that have managed to break through and leave a mark on our day-to-day life today, um, they just stop and believe, this is what I want to do. This is my calling. I will go and I will do it. And the garage is not a joke. Lock yourself in your garage and start building it. And Tom stayed there. And I'm sure the moment he resigned, he didn't even know what's PayPal, not hand even to Elon Musk. But you don't know what will happen. We can plan and we can decide and we can do it. But the only thing is in our control is chase it. If you believe it, chase it. And he went to his garage and he built an engine, not a computer. With all the respect to Steve Jobs and his team, not a mouse, not a chipset. He
Mm.
built space launcher in his garage because he believed.
Well, it was interesting. on a also scientific note, like there's some crazy, interesting guys like this. One of them is the famous physicist Michio Kaku. I'm not sure if you know who he is, but I listened to him on a podcast, and he also built something like a like a crazy reactor with tens of thousands of volts or something in his garage with it, like when he was 13 or 12, and he was
Yeah.
bringing just like kilometers and kilometers of copper wire around there. And of course, we have the famous story of Bob Lazar, the guy who supposedly worked at Area 51, that there's actually a new movie coming out that they have the 3D experience. They rebuilt what the hangar looked like, what the UFO supposedly looked like. But he was also recruited as a think outside the box kind of scientist because they noticed that he put a jet engine on a Honda, like in the 80s or something. And they hired him for some supposedly reverse engineering tasks to think outside the box, if you believe that story. But it seems like those eccentrics, if your son is building a nuclear reactor in the garage or a rocket engine in the garage as a teenager, probably should pay attention.
But that's the point actually of Tom himself. Like Tom himself on his tongue, he has this quote in one of his interviews. I always want to build a rocket engine. That was my dream since I was a kid.
Mhm.
And dude, I find it very fascinating. I think it's people that chase their cause, people that chase their calling. That's what happens, and that's how it is. And discipline. It takes discipline to get this done. And really, you don't know what will happen afterwards. Like I'm sure he had no clue that someone will come and knock his door, and his name is Elon Musk, and say, "You're employee number one in SpaceX. Let's build this together." Just believe. And this is a big inspiration, and those people together now made us all wait, all in TV watching together. It's and see what is there. The launch cost before SpaceX is 200 million plus. The launch cost after SpaceX, after Tom Mueller's great engineering, is less than 50 million. Every rocket is thrown away after Tom Mueller boosters land, and we can push it again. And the moon missions unaffordable unless you want 1 billion views and let's see how to monetize it with TikTok. It was unbearable. Now it's commercially viable and it goes there. And my bet will go again on Tom. He left SpaceX now, actually, and he starts a new company that focusing on the logistics and the zero gravity logistics in the space. He's already there. He's planning the life on Earth, on the moon, and showing like logistics vehicles and how we're gonna move there and how everything is going there. This is wow. So for me, if we're gonna choose a magician this episode, it's Tom Mueller. What do you think about him?
I mean, yeah, that's fascinating to see. And that just, and not really a note on him, but I think it's a related story that I was interviewing somebody for a pretty technical and also physics related position, let's put it that way. And this guy was 65 and 20, 30 years ago, he was from the old Soviet Union. He was like a nuclear scientist or something like that. He moved overseas. He had a normal job as a salesperson for the last 30 years. He's now actually retired and he still kept like developing and researching physics and doing all the math. And now he's actually looking for a position again in that particular field. So I was interviewing him for a position and I thought, wow, that's actually so cool that I hope more people did that. Some of these guys at ASML and TSMC and these space companies, like I hope they at some point feel enough of security to be able to take the risk and apply their knowledge and expertise in something that's not bureaucratic, something that's fast moving. So I'm kind of looking forward to having this long tail distribution of having the NASA and the SpaceX or SpaceX and NASA, and then having this long tail distribution of smaller companies that we see like Amazon, Walmart, and then a smaller distribution of e-commerce stores on any particular keyword that you can find. So I think that's where we're going, and with the massive like multiple factor cost decrease, I think space colonization or mining or deriving chemicals in zero gravity. It's also in the vacuum. It's already being used by some startups. I think that should be more common, and it shouldn't be only the U.S. doing it.
It should, but I think people should afford it and should focus into it. I don't think that rest of the world is giving it the right um,
Attention.
attention. I think people are being intentionally or unintentionally mixed into the current every carrot that you feel it's being thrown into the mass, and people start following. It's hard to say, but majority of the population is actually consuming, not producing, and producing takes time.
Mhm.
And to make that breakthrough, it really takes time. And some people produce under pressure, and some people produce with consistency and discipline, and some people create the right environment for this to work. And when we talk about this, like, so we talked about Falcon, and we talked about Tom Mueller and Elon Musk making it work. But I would like to shed a light on one team member from Lincoln Labs that actually made the rest of the story happen in reality. And her name is Farzana Khatiri. Do you really think that she could have done it i- in Iran or Afghanistan or Pakistan?
And I'm just opening her up as we're speaking here. So hang in there.
It's Farzana, Farzan. You got her? Yeah.
I got her on LinkedIn. We're already friends now. I'm
Yeah.
joking, but it is actually her LinkedIn, and yeah, you can see she's been working at MIT for 23 years.
Yeah. And she's originally actually from Central Asia. Like, it was very hard to know where she was originally from. But from the last name, my bet will be Iran, actually. Um, there's no way this would have happened in Iran
Hmm.
or in Pakistan or Afghanistan or whatever. To be honest, I'm also so proud Egyptian, and most of what we're talking about is about nanotechnology. And the Nobel Prize owner of physics that invented actually anything that make us look at nanotechnology is Professor Ahmed Zuhail,
Mm.
Egyptian. He would have
Okay.
never made it in Egypt. And US, we can say whatever we want about the US, but they placed the right environment for making that
These
innovation
kinds
happen.
of people.
It's
And so we don't forget about it. I mean, we need to come back to an Egypt episode again. There's been some new crazy shit, pardon my French, discovered under your pyramids over there. I don't know what your people were digging, but there's been some legit scientists. I don't know if you heard about Filippo
that,
Bionde
yeah,
and the
that's
scans
meant to
and
Sphinx.
yeah, and they're also looking to obviously the coils underneath that go down 1 or 2 kilometers, and supposedly the labyrinth that was were mentioned by Aristotle in some of his writings that were even more impressive than the pyramids are underneath as well. So, whew,
And like, when it comes to science in Egypt nowadays, we have been in the news a lot. Also, we've been confirmed to be the really origin of humanity, actually. So everyone, there was the announcement of the ape that was discovered in the desert. It's older than any other ape, actually.
mm,
And it was announced, I think, last month that they found it in Egypt. And big science breakthrough on our ancestors. And apparently, Egypt is not just the cradle of civilization; it's also the where the humanity were born. In reality, so yeah, definitely, all the time. Let's talk about Egypt. I
well,
love
let's
that.
come back to where we're going as humanity rather than we came from. Yeah, so back to the MIT lab, back to SpaceX and Lincoln Lab. So we
Yeah.
discussed about the models. We discussed about kind of the um, leaps in technology that we've been getting. Are there any specific? I know we talked a little bit before about navigation. Potentially, we talk about the engine side, but is there any other technology that went into Artemis II that just blew you out of the water?
Yeah, that's how I came to actually. That's why I would like us to talk a little bit about Lincoln and Labs. But think about it. Actually, let's put that video again of the rock tile of Apollo 11 and Apollo 13 compared to Artemis. So for the space industry to be making sense, we needed to have solve one problem, which is make it affordable, but we also needed to navigate as equivalent or as accurate as possible, and with less risk as it can get. So Apollo, if you look at the projectile of Apollo 11, it went so far direction together with Apollo 13. Both was followed the same, and then at the moment they came into the gravity of the moon
Hmm.
haunted them. They
So
followed
it's
the
kind of
gravity of the moon
pulling it with its gravity to go behind it.
to go behind it. And you would see that actually it was Apollo 11 followed the moon for some time and then came from almost like a rectangle, how call it, like what, triangle shape coming back, following. But Apollo 13, which was the catastrophe, actually, it went back to the Earth almost like a projectile. You can see here, it's coming
It's going
v-
straight down like a bullet,
straight.
almost without any curvature. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a projectile coming into the Earth, almost a rocket. And of course, that was the sad moment of explosion. And it entered Earth and exploded on the space. While Apollo 11, and thanks to really actually Neil Armstrong here, because he was taking control manually of the navigation at this point of time, and then it went out and it's going away from the gravity of the
It's again,
Earth, and then
it's coming in a little bit away
yes,
from the Earth, but within the orbit that as it's getting closer, the gravity again is pulling it in and it's coming at an angle, almost as if you're drifting into a corner rather than driving at it at 90 degrees, right, and trying to brake.
exactly. And then when it comes to Artemis, it's going into a very smooth, clean, well managed, actually, as if someone is driving, really. And then what's mind blowing is, how do they drive into space? Like, how do we navigate in the space? Okay, on Earth we have GPS. We can look at the stars before the GPS, and maybe we have some labels to tell us where to go, and turn right if you're going to Washington, turn left if you're going to New York, and whatever. We have labels, we have GPS, we have things that are telling us where to navigate. How are we navigating on space? It's just big dark hole with some stars and photos in the space. So how are we navigating there? And this is where actually Lincoln Labs come into the game. So how we navigating originally is with inertia. It's very sophisticated mathematical and physical, and back to what Peter told us, math and physics is the core. Just learn them there. So we push it on a projectile. We have a route drone, and then we know there's a gyroscope, and I'm talking here about Apollo. We have a gyroscope in the middle, and that gyroscope is moving. If it moves right, then it feeds back into the model with the computer. And think about the 4 kilobyte computer in Apollo 11 compared to the gigabits that we have now that is processing. Sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, like a bad picture is going to be 4 megabytes on your
Yes,
phone, right? Like a bad
exactly.
quality picture. So 4 kilobytes is a fraction of that, obviously.
Yeah, and it's supposed to calculate every time with every movement that now we're moving away from the direction, let's come back, or now we're moving these two directions, coming back, and it keeps sending messages to Earth, to the command center over radio
A
frequency.
message back and forth over radio, basically, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the radio space is an RF spectrum. It's condensed. We want to use the radio space. We want to use the radio spectrum now for 5G and 6G, and use it for 3G, and we make a lot of speeds. And then it's coming slow from the space and telling you, oops, you moved this direction. Let's recourse again. And the result was what we have seen with Apollo 11, that Neil had to step in manually and correct the course, or with Apollo 13, it was a catastrophe. So with Artemis, it was a completely different way. So now think about it. With all the power of computing we have, we are able to take photos, because all our Earth telescopes has been taking photos of the space, and now we almost have a picture of every point of time what we will see at any point of time. What is the photo? So this is, think about it as the labels.
And we also have lasers on space, which we're going to get to.
Exactly. We needed to have laser. And for that laser to happen, the work on the laser transport of communication started 30 years ago in Lincoln Labs with an amazing professor, Don Parson, and another, Brian Robinson and Farzana Khatiri. And they were all focusing on making sure that we are able to create laser communication in the space. And they managed to create what we call now O2O system. And that system were making us all watch Artemis live. It's broadcasting on 260 megabits per second real from the space. And we were able to see that here. Many of the people on Earth doesn't get the 260 megabits per second anyway at homes or in their internet. So it's a big breakthrough to get that there. And that reflects into 3 stations on Earth. 3 clear stations. They are called Deep Space Navigation System. It's like instantly matching the movement that's coming from the gyroscopes of the space. The messages are coming all in laser, so now more accurate, and the photos that has been filmed live and pushed again live. So you are literally swimming in the space with your eyes open, with
in real
real-time
time.
transport that is coming with the efforts of that amazing team that made it work there. And this is hard work. This is hard work for 30 years. And think about they're developing space laser communication over 30 years with 4 presidents canceling space programs. And they're still on the mission. That's not a founder. That's not a startup. That's not someone behind trying to make them work. They have a federal budget, working on a lab, generating actually the breakthrough technology that we're having now. So when you talk about Farzana specifically, which I feel that I can really connect in what she's saying, she's been driven by the fact that the RF would be congested anyway. The radio frequencies are, think about it as a pipe.
It doesn't scale as well, like when you talk about
A limited,
such high distances, you know.
exactly. It's a limited source, while light is unlimited source. So with the space trip that we are now, we managed to get unlimited energy with SpaceX and unlimited communicative bandwidth with the team from Lincoln Lab, pushing the messages to Earth. We have 3 strong stations, one in Australia, one in Spain, and one in the US. The 3 of them together are at any point of time receiving the messages from the O2O to Earth, responding simultaneously to that situation. And we only lost communication when they went behind the moon for 41 minutes. And after that, they came back again with the beautiful photos that we have seen and the 30 years that they have taken to do that. So 2 great companies or institutions with amazing people that have created actually that miracle.
Some hope, maybe some hope again for humanity.
It's really a miracle actually. And of course, like when you follow, you have seen there's a lot of things that you can talk about, that we can have episodes about how they are controlling the urinary system, how the food has been served. What's the difference between the food that was served in Apollo and what's the difference between the food that has been served here in Artemis? And we can have a full episode about the company behind the food that was served to the astronauts, and how now, before we close, we definitely have to talk about the 4 heroes, the human heroes actually, that been on the shuttle, and one of them calls herself now the plumber of the space since the urinary system broken, Christine. And
And I believe what you're talking about is the 4 astronauts who are on the flight. So
yeah,
we got Reed Wiseman, who's the commander. We got Victor Glover, who is the pilot. Christina Koch, who's the mission specialist, and Jeremy Hansen, who's also mission specialist, and he's Canadian. He's not from NASA like the other 3.
and I would try to close on the note to talk about Karol Wiseman.
Yeah,
And
do you want to share the story with
I think
what
we
is
should.
this?
Should. So Karol got herself a mountain or a cartel on the moon
Crater
now,
on the moon? Yeah.
crater that is called on her name. Karol was the late wife of actually Reed Wiseman. She passed away with cancer in 2015, and Reed and his team, as a cohort that has been working together for the last 12 years, decided together that they will Here's I think I can say whatever, but you should hear the voice of actually Jeremy Henson. And
Let's redo this again with sound.
Her name was Karol, the spouse of Reed, the mother of Katie and Ellie. And if you want to find this one, you look at Glushko, and it's just to the northwest of that, at the same latitude as Ohm, and it's a bright spot on the moon. And we would like to call it Karol, and you spell that Carroll.
you can feel the emotions and the shakes of the voice of Jeremy when he's doing the announcement. And Karol has been a great support to her husband. And when she got cancer, like Reed wanted to leave the program and stay with his wife and focus on her recovery. And she completely refused. And on his words, she said, "We're going to be here and we're going to be together and we will finish the legacy that we started for our family." And they stayed, and Reed continued the mission, and Karol passed away in 2015. And the moment of carrying the weight of her legacy, and if you hear the words of Reed explaining that's he did it for her.
Mm.
And that's real love that actually stays till the end in history. There's always an engine inside us that makes us go and drive. That engine that drove Tom Mueller, or the engine that drives Elon Musk, or the engine that drove Reed Weissman, or the bond between Reed and his team that made this mission happen. Look at this inside, and you find it, and then everything else is actually doable. I don't know about you, but I think this is a very right moment to say thank you to our listeners, and hope they have enjoyed this inspiring story of the last 10 days.
Yeah, hopefully they got some inspiration from it, and will stay up to date with other things that are positive in the world, and hopefully get the common human consciousness focused on what can be done when we're working together, rather than some primitive monkeys throwing rocks and lighting sticks on fire, throwing it at each other, for things like oil, and it's just absolutely insane. So let's stay inspired, and let's inspire people who have this genius to keep living out their ideas.
So Reed Weissman, Victor Glover, Christine Koch, and Jeremy Henson, respect. Thank you for making us actually proud and
Perfect. And
give
we'll
us hope.
close it off there. And until the next episode, see you later, TrickCasters.